Hey y'all, my name is Sabri Ellis. I am a grad student at Grand Canyon University studying sociology with an emphasis in education, and we're going to talk about family, diversity, and inequality today. So individuals define families differently. So when it comes to sociology, we define families as a social construct. So they're groups of related people that are bound by connections that are either biological, legal, or emotional. So you can create family basically anywhere. But the clearest family connections are biological. So as between parents and their children, but there's some legal recognition like kids who are adopted or kids who may be in the foster care system that are also a part of this. So we're going to examine 3 separate countries today from 3 different continents. So because I am an American, I'm going to use the United States as one of my countries. So because I was born in the United States, obviously I'm going to start with this country. So typically in this country, families are actually pretty well acknowledged. So you can have different types of families. You can have families that are nuclear, which is your biological family. Blended, that has, stepchildren, stepmoms, stepfathers. Single parent homes, which we have a lot of those in my specific community. And also same-sex marriages and same-sex families. So the concept of family in the United States is quite diverse. However, when you compare it to the 1950s, the 1950s was a breadwinner homemaker type of family. So typically it would be an employed father, an unemployed mother and children, and then they would each have their own functions within the household. So as we know, in the United States, the cost of living has been rising for the last decade. So because of that, there's been some shifts in how families have to bring in income. So moms and wives who used to, back in the 1950s, used to be the homemakers, they now have to go into the workforce. With respect to some single family parent households where their lives are a little bit different. And one of the main differences that we see between these dual income households versus the single parent households is the standard of living. A lot of resources have to get cut in order for a single parent household to be able to sustain. And unfortunately, because of some of these things, there's some significant income inequality with families and within the United States, to be quite frank. There is a lack of access to economic mobility. Some groups are unable to move up within their careers because of education, because of some racism, discrimination, different things like that. And there are higher divorce rates than there were back in the 1950s. And there are also significant declining marriage rates. So this really affects how the structure of family is in the United States. And with the United States having so many different religions that people follow, this also really affects it. In Japan, however, the family structure is a lot different. So the family structure is a lot more patriarchal. So typically the elder male in the family is the head of household. He is the person who is in charge of bringing in the money. And Japan is a male-dominated workforce. There are women who are increasingly getting more into the workforce, but Japan is mostly a male-dominated workforce. So because of this, households are typically a few different incomes. But one of the main things with Japan is that all of the men are working in the family, and their household structure within their family, it goes out to their extended family as well. So there is typically multiple generations who live in the households together. So it may be a grandfather, his kids, their children's kids, cousins, all living in one household. However, because of what has been happening with our climate and with with society, there are some declining birth rates and generations are getting older. So a lot of the households and families in Japan are beginning to change because extended families are not really existing anymore. So it's turning into more so like a nuclear family with just parents and children kind of taking care of the house. Japan also follows Confucian principles where they are big on respecting parents and elders in their families. And South Africa is a lot different than the other two. So South Africa, family is defined differently amongst different ethnic groups because they have such a vast, diverse culture. However, South Africa has historical apartheid that has truly affected concept of families. So apartheid has unfortunately really affected labor distribution, family dynamics, socioeconomics in South Africa. So because of apartheid has created in economic segregation. So there are people who work on a part of a lower caste or class system, and there are people who work at a higher class system, so they're able to do more and take care of more people in their families. So because of this, because there's so many different diverse ways to look at South Africa's family dynamics, we have to make sure that we pay attention to how apartheid has affected families in South Africa. So with families, just to conclude, families sociologically are looked at as a social construct that ever changes with different institutional roles, because institutional roles are always changing. And because of this, we pay a lot of attention to power dynamics within families when it comes to sociology. But when it comes to a Christian worldview, the Christian worldview believes that families are divinely ordained, that God created man and woman to create a family. So this emphasizes the nuclear model, essentially stating that it should be a mom, a father, and children in one family. And the Christian worldview also really emphasizes giving your knowledge of Christianity onto your children. So all in all, when it comes to families, all across the globe, families are defined differently, but families and roles within the family is always changing because of different social institutions. So families are able to adapt to technology and economy in the ways that they need. Thank you.